people want GPUs wherever they can get them. That's where GAIB comes into play. So to set the stage, let's talk about AI compute demand and the GPU shortage. Right now, generative AI demand and basically these LLMs becoming so widely used has created massive demand for chips, and obviously valuations for NVIDIA have just gone through the roof. Clearly, there's a shortage of chips out there, people really trying to get their hands on them as fast as they can. So one interesting stat is that with these frontier models, the amount of compute needed is doubling every 6 months. So in a year, it can basically 4x. And you're also starting to see a lot of inference demand come in as people are starting to use these AI models in their day-to-day life. The combination of supply chain constraints as well as rapidly growing demand could result in some pretty major shortages by 2026. Obviously, people are trying to figure it out. Basically, what GAIB does is it issues tokens that are rights to these cash flows. Essentially, instead of it just being debt financing, they're also doing debt and equity financing, right? So essentially, revenue share with some of these data centers as well. Now, what they're doing is they're introducing something called the AID, which is the AI synthetic dollar. You basically mint it by depositing USDC or USDT. AID is backed by these GPU loans, and it's also backed by US Treasury notes as well. It's not just GPU financing, they also have a bunch of US Treasuries in the bank, essentially. And then as capital enters, the supply increases and it contracts as yields are paid, right? So the whole idea with AID is essentially it's kind of their asset that can be used in DeFi. So you can take these GPU cash flows and go and start basically using them in DeFi protocols. The whole idea here is you're financing GPUs, but then you're also getting kind of like this stable coin that you can also ensure that you're liquid while you're earning yield or basically waiting for yield from these data center buildouts. So what are the mechanisms here, right? The first thing is you deposit and mint AID, right? So you're gonna first deposit USDC or USDT, then you stake it and you receive SAID. Now SAID is staked AID that actually you get yield on. So this is where you're getting exposure to these GPU basically deals. And then you have kind of a 14-day cooldown period if you wanna redeem your SAID and get AID. So AID is kind of like just more of a regular stablecoin. SAID is the yield-bearing version. And the cool thing about SAID is not only do you earn yield over time on it, but you can also use in DeFi. For example, you can use in Pendle as well. So you can start speculating on the cash flows from that yield, etc. And you can basically figure out what's your risk return profile on this. So right now, where things are at is they have a deposit program open. AID is not live yet. Essentially, you're able to deposit USDC or USDT and you earn these spice points, right? And these spice points essentially are redeemable for AID when that is actually launched. In the meantime, the funds are locked. So if you are depositing funds in there, yeah, you're earning spice points. You're probably going to get an airdrop from whenever they launch their protocol token. And then you'll also get AID. But just be aware that right now they're bootstrapping liquidity and your funds are essentially locked until they actually launch. So there is risk there. You also are able to get NFTs and other special rewards. So I imagine these NFTs will lead to a bigger airdrop as well. I think GAIB will probably launch end of 2025. So that's kind of when it will launch. So as you can see here, they kind of have alpha cap number 3 going on, 57,000 users to $38 million in TVL. So there's been quite a bit of essentially money deposited already, right? Like I said, you're not going to be able to get it out. Now, the one thing is while this money is deposited, you will earn yield on it. I don't see exact amount of yield you earn on here, but it is something to be aware of. And then you also, with some of these, for example, you can earn some resolve points with USR. So there are different rewards there. And for all of these, you're earning more spice as well right now at an earlier stage. So if you are going to do some stablecoin farming, I think this is a pretty good bet to do it right now. Let's quickly talk about the team. So Kony, he's pretty OG venture and private equity background. I think he's much more the crypto native person here. He's worked at a bunch of funds. So he really knows his thing when it comes to the crypto space. Alex, on the other hand, the co-founder, he actually used to be an investment director at a top 7 chip firm, which is Realtek. And then on top of that, he's the founder at GMI Cloud, which basically provides compute. So obviously, I think there's something here where they're probably structuring a deal with GMI Cloud for building out their data center. So I imagine they're being basically their own case study, right? Because if he's co-founder at cloud compute firm and as well as at GAIB, I think there's a lot of synergy there. So I think they clearly have a lot of expertise in this area. So that's quite bullish in terms of them actually being able to turn this into something that works really well. And yeah, they have had a $5 million pre-seed round. They had a $10 million strategic investment by Amber Group, which I'm not sure. I think that was just AID deposits. So I don't know if it directly went into their, I guess, like company operations or into this vault, essentially. And they also have strategic partners, including Aether. So yeah, they have some pretty solid partners, some solid funds as well. So they definitely have some financial capital behind them. Now, the crazy thing here is they're projecting a very high APY, mainly due to revenue share as well as debt-like yields. So basically part of their financing is debt yields, so basically kind of more standard lower APYs. But then they also have revenue share with some of these GPU data center build-outs. So the yields that they're talking about are pretty high. They're saying something like 40%. Again, I don't know how legitimate this is. I'm not an expert on GPU cash flows. Would love for, if you are, to comment on this. But yeah, basically sounds like from the higher risk revenue share side or like the equity style side of things, that's where most of the returns accrue. Now, I don't know when they mean equity-like returns, does that actually mean they get equity in these companies? Is there, if one of these companies goes public, does that really affect things? So I would love for more clarity on that. But from what I can see, the yields are projected to be pretty high. And I can see yields being higher than definitely normal stablecoin yields. But yeah, the yields they're promising here, it is quite a bit higher than I would expect. Now, the bull case here is that there is just continues to be rapid growth in institutional demand for AI compute, and then they're able to tap into that, which it already seems like they have a lot of expertise in this industry. So that could yield basically really great results for them. Obviously, they have some great token incentives, so this could also drive a lot of activity for them. I think the more they're able to get into these vaults, the more of these GPU financing deals they can do. And then obviously composable DeFi integrations is like the kicker on top, where if you can go use AID and SAID in a bunch of DeFi protocols, lend against it, borrow against it, go use it in Pendle, I think that just creates a lot of utility and then allows you to basically have a very, very productive asset there, right? And then the strong founding team obviously is a big plus here, especially the co-founder who's got a lot of experience clearly with the compute world. I think that's pretty bullish. Now, the bear case is, I don't know what happens when borrowers default, right? They say they'll seize the GPU collateral, but that just sounds like a messy process. Like it sounds like there could be a lot of things that could go wrong there. And as somebody who deposits USDC, I don't know how much legal rights you have there. There's obviously smart contract and vault risk, like with any other protocol. There is the fact that there's, I believe, a 14-day delay in withdrawal. I mean, right now you can't withdraw at all, but once the protocol comes out and they launch, there is a delay there. And yeah, there could be issues with redemption, and that being delayed even further. And I guess the last thing obviously is, let's say you deposit your capital for a long time and then the token launch doesn't do well because they only launch in on a low quality exchange. And then you basically earn very little yield based on, let's say, the actual token itself. So there are risks like that where the token could not do well and, you could have had better opportunities elsewhere, but that's pretty standard. So in terms of competitor landscape, so USD.AI is also quite similar in the sense that they're focusing on GPU financing, but their APR is estimated to be eventually around 15 to 25, but they're only focused on hardware-backed debt. So they're not really doing any revenue share. USD.AI seems like maybe a bit safer in terms of like how they're approaching it, but the yields are lower. And with GAIB, I believe you can choose what sort of risk profile. So I believe when the full protocols kind of launch, you can choose whether you want debt or equity only. And then Giza/Arma, they're more of a AI stablecoin vault. So they're not really GPU-fi. That's earning 8 to 15%. So that's kind of a different style of yield, but that's another hot AI protocol. So yeah, if they do end up getting 40% yields, that's pretty insane. Let's see if that actually happens or how risk-free it is, but it could be interesting. So I hope you enjoyed this video. To recap, GAIB is tokenizing AI compute demand and integrating into DeFi. Basically, the whole idea here is you're taking this kind of asset class and you're adding DeFi Legos to it. People can essentially add a lot more utility to it. You can earn yield on top of the existing yield. So I think there's a lot of basically opportunity here, right? So their token launch is slated for late 2025. That's where you want to keep an eye out for like final tokenomics, etc. And yeah, they'll probably have some GPU deals announced where they find, basically, I would like to actually know which data centers they're financing and actual details and deal structure. GAIB is definitely one of the more interesting projects out there. Just do your own research, go check them out. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. If you're on Twitter or X, make sure to like this video, give me a comment. I'll see you in the next video, and let me know what's the next DeFi AI protocol I should cover.